My husband packed his bags and announced I'm taking my real family on vacation. I stayed quiet and watched him leave with her. The next morning, he called me screaming, "Why were all the cards declined?" I smiled and said, "Because those cards were always mine. Enjoy your real family." What happened next left him begging. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment from which part of the world you are watching. Get comfortable and relax. Let's begin. He was packing a suitcase. The sound of the zipper was a sharp, deliberate noise in the quiet of our bedroom. I stood in the doorway, watching him. He folded a linen shirt, one I had bought for him last summer, and placed it neatly inside the open luggage on the bed. Our bed. He was humming. It was a tuneless, absent sound that spoke of a mind already elsewhere. I remember the afternoon light was clean and pale, cutting across the carpet to his shoes. I remember the precise way he arranged his toiletry bag. He was meticulous in his preparation, a fact I had once found endearing. Now I saw it only as the careful staging of his exit. "Going somewhere." My voice was calm. It did not sound like my own. David glanced up, a faint smile touching his lips. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who has already won an argument that was never spoken aloud. "Bali," he said, as if announcing a trip to the grocery store. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. A simple pose, a contained pose. "Bali," I repeated, "for work." He laughed then, a short, dismissive puff of air. "No, Olivia, not for work, for a vacation." He turned to select a pair of trousers from his wardrobe. A proper one, somewhere with sun and service. The pieces began to align in my mind with a cold, mechanical click. The late nights at the office that were not at the office. The new, discreet cologne. The way his phone screen tilted away from me. I had noted each item. I had filed each away. I had chosen, for too long, to believe the simpler, less painful explanations. "A vacation," I said. "Who with?" This time he looked at me fully. His eyes held no guilt, no hesitation, only a profound, unsettling certainty. "With my family," he stated. The word hung in the air between us. Family asterisk. He let it sit, let its poison seep into the room. He wanted me to ask. He was waiting for it. I obliged him. "Your family." "My real family," he clarified, his tone conversational, almost helpful, as if he were correcting a minor error in my reasoning. "Chloe and the baby." There it was, the final, brutal arithmetic. Chloe and the baby. A child. He had a child. The knowledge did not arrive as a shock, but as a confirmation. A missing variable slotted into a formula, making the grim total suddenly, perfectly clear. The life I thought we were building was a facade. I was the foundation, unseen and bearing the load, while he built a decorative shell for someone else. I felt a hollow open inside my chest. It was not the hot tear of grief, but the cold vacuum of absolute clarity. Everything before this moment softened, blurred, became insignificant. There was only this man in this room with this suitcase. "I see," I said. My voice remained level. "And how are you paying for this proper vacation?" He patted the back pocket of his trousers where his wallet lay. The gesture was infuriatingly smug. "With our money, of course." Our money, two words that crystallized every injustice, every silent year of my labor being treated as a communal resource for his benefit. He said it with such casual ownership, as if the six-figure bonuses I had earned, the careful investments I had managed, the mortgage I alone qualified for, were a shared entitlement. He had contributed his salary, a respectable but lesser amount, and in his mind, this granted him equal dominion. It did not. I did not move. I did not cry. I simply watched him as he returned to his packing, the humming resuming. He was so sure of himself, so sure of me. He expected tears. He expected pleas. He expected the emotional storm he could then dismiss as hysterical. He was prepared for a scene. My silence was the one thing he had not prepared for. He finished, closing the suitcase and snapping the latches. The sounds were final. He wheeled it to the bedroom door where I still stood. He paused, expecting me to step aside. I looked at him, really looked for the last time as his wife. I memorized the arrogant set of his jaw, the triumph in his eyes. He mistook my scrutiny for despair. "It's just how it has to be," he said, not unkindly. That was the worst of it, the patina of regret he thought he should perform. "You'll be fine, you've always been fine." I said nothing. I stepped back, clearing the doorway. He walked past me, the wheels of his suitcase clicking over the hardwood floor of the hall. I followed at a distance, a ghost in my own home. I watched from the top of the stairs as he opened the front door. He did not look back. He pulled the door shut behind him with a soft, definitive thud. The house was silent, the kind of silence that has weight and texture. I walked downstairs and stood in the empty foyer. Through the sidelight window, I saw his car back out of the driveway and disappear down the street. I turned and walked into the kitchen. I filled the kettle. I set it on the stove. I took a cup from the cabinet. Each movement was deliberate, measured. The mundane routine was an anchor in the sudden, vast emptiness. As the water heated, I leaned against the counter. I replayed the last 15 minutes, his humming, his declaration, my real family, our money. The cold hollow inside me began to fill, not with heat but with a sharp, crystalline substance. Resolve. He thought he had left behind a wounded woman. He thought he had taken what was his and moved on. He was wrong. He had left behind a problem he did not yet know he had. He had forgotten the most critical detail in his triumphant exit. He had packed his suitcase, but he had left all the receipts behind. The kettle whistled. I poured the water over the tea bag, watching the dark swirl bloom in the cup. I carried it to my home office, the room where I had built the career that paid for everything. I sat in my chair. I placed the cup on a coaster. I opened my laptop. I did not cry. I did not rage. I began to make a list. It was a very, very quiet list. The first item was a single, actionable line: freeze joint credit cards. The second was call Marcus. I sipped my tea. It was still too hot, but the sharp bitterness felt appropriate. Outside, the afternoon light began to fade. He would be at the airport now, I thought. He would be meeting Chloe. He would be feeling like a man who had successfully claimed his destiny. Let him have this moment. Let him have this car ride, this check-in, this anticipation. It was the last thing of mine he would ever take. I saved the list. I closed the laptop. I sat in the gathering dark, perfectly still, and I planned. The grief would come later, in waves I would allow myself to feel in private. But first, there was work to do. The kind of work I was very, very good at. The list was the only thing that mattered. I worked through the evening, methodically moving from one item to the next. The joint credit cards were the simplest. A series of secure logins, a few clicks on bank websites, the brief entry of a security code sent to my phone. Each confirmation email that landed in my inbox felt like a deadbolt sliding into place. I transferred a modest, reasonable sum from our main checking account, the one that was technically joint but fed exclusively by my direct deposits, into a new, separate account at a different institution. I left enough to cover the mortgage and utilities for 2 months, a semblance of normalcy for now. I sent an email to Marcus. It was brief and factual. David has left. He announced he is taking his mistress and their child on vacation. He stated he is using our money. I have initiated financial safeguards. I need to see you tomorrow morning to discuss immediate legal steps. I attached a scanned copy of the preliminary divorce filing I had drafted years ago and quietly updated every 6 months, a document that lived in a locked digital folder named Tax Archives. I had never truly believed I would use it. It was simply a contingency, a piece of personal risk management. Now, it was my first operational order. I did not sleep. I sat in the living room in the dark, not staring at anything in particular, just letting the reality settle into its new, harsh shape. The hurt was a physical pressure behind my sternum, but it was contained, compartmentalized. There would be time for that later. For now, there was only procedure. My phone rang at 5:47 a.m. The screen glowed with his name. I let it ring 3 times, then answered. I did not speak. "Olivia." His voice was a tense whisper, frayed at the edges. I could hear the distant, echoing announcements of an airport terminal in the background. "There's a problem with the cards." I remained silent, waiting. "The Platinum card, it's been declined. I tried the Visa, same thing. What did you do?" The whisper was becoming a hiss. I had pictured this moment. I had rehearsed my line. It was not dramatic. It was a simple correction of fact. I didn't do anything to your asterisk cards, David. I kept my voice even, almost bored. I closed our joint accounts. The cards attached to them no longer work. A beat of stunned silence, then a forced, reasoning tone. Okay, I get it, you're upset. This is your way of acting out. Very cute, now fix it. The flight boards in 40 minutes. I am not upset, I said, which was true. I was far beyond upset. And I will not fix it. You said you were using our money. I am simply clarifying the ownership of that money. What are you talking about? It's our joint account. It was a repository for my income, I stated. Your contributions covered approximately 30% of our shared living expenses over the last 5 years. The surplus, the investments, the liquid assets, those were mine. You are welcome to use your asterisk money for your vacation. I assume you have your own savings account. The noise he made was not a word. It was a strangled sound of dawning comprehension mixed with rage. The background noise shifted. He was moving, likely away from Chloe and the check-in counter. You listen to me, he spat, the whisper gone. You do not get to cut me off. We are married. That is half my money. You should have consulted a lawyer before you packed your suitcase, I said. Community property statutes have nuances, especially regarding the tracing of separate property. All of the major assets are in my name alone. The house, the investment portfolio, the car you're driving. I have the documentation. My lawyer has the documentation. Your lawyer, once you retain one, will explain it to you. Your lawyer, he repeated, incredulous. I have a 9 o'clock appointment. I suggest you find a way back to the city. You'll need to conserve your cash for a hotel. The line was quiet for a long moment. I could hear his breathing, ragged and sharp. When he spoke again, the arrogance was gone, replaced by a cold, threatening clarity. You think you're clever. You think you can trap me like this. You will undo this, Olivia, today, or you will regret it. Goodbye, David. I ended the call. I placed the phone on the table. My hand was steady. The pressure in my chest had not changed. I walked to the kitchen and made a pot of coffee. The sunrise was beginning, painting the sky in strips of cool orange and gray. I stood at the window, sipping the hot, bitter coffee, and watched the night recede. The phone began to ring again, and again. I did not answer. After the 5th call, it stopped. A moment later, a series of text notifications chimed. Call me back now. This isn't funny. Chloe is freaking out. You're causing a scene. I'm warning you. I read them, then swiped them away. I finished my coffee. I showered. I dressed in a tailored suit, a uniform of authority. I selected simple jewelry. Each action was deliberate, a ritual of preparation for what was to come. At 8:30, my phone rang once more. This time it was Marcus. I got your email, he said. His voice was calm, professional. The attachment is thorough. Are you safe? I am safe, I said. And you're certain about the path forward. No hesitation. I looked around the kitchen, at the house I had purchased, at the life I had built that he had so casually dismissed as a backdrop for his real one. I have never been more certain. Good, I've reviewed the preliminary filing. It's aggressive. It assumes all assets are separate property. We'll need to be ready to prove that. I have proof, I said. 7 years of tax returns, bank statements, and wire confirmations. The mortgage application. The title. It's all in my home office. Bring everything. We'll file today. We'll also need to discuss an immediate restraining order if he makes any threats. He already has, I said, recalling his last words. Verbally, over the phone, I recorded the call. Marcus was silent for a second. I could almost hear his approving nod. I'll see you at 9. I gathered the files into my briefcase. As I was leaving, another text came in from David. It was a photo, a picture of the airport departures board, his flight to Bali highlighted. The text read, Last chance. I studied the flight number and the time. Then I opened a travel website. I booked a single, refundable ticket on the same flight in my name only. I took a screenshot of the booking confirmation. I did not send it to him. I saved it in a new folder. It was evidence, should I need it, of his intent to abandon the marital home and drain marital assets. A small, tactical move. I locked the front door behind me. The morning air was cool. I got into my car, the one registered solely to me, and drove toward Marcus's office. The city was waking up. People were going to work, starting their days. My day had already begun hours ago. The first battle was already over. He just didn't know it yet. He was still at the airport, stranded, explaining to Chloe why their dream vacation had evaporated. Let him sit with that. Let him explain. My work was elsewhere. Marcus's office was on the 12th floor, all glass and muted tones. His assistant, a woman with a calm demeanor, showed me directly into the conference room. Marcus was already there, standing at the head of a long table. He didn't offer a sympathetic smile or a comforting touch on the shoulder. He gave me a firm, brief handshake. It was what I needed. "Olivia, sit. Let's begin." I placed my briefcase on the table, clicked the latches, and began removing the files. I had organized them into color-coded binders: blue for real property, red for financial accounts, green for tax documentation, black for personal communications and the recorded phone call. "Before we start," Marcus said, taking his seat, "for the record, you are here to initiate divorce proceedings against David Sterling. You believe he has abandoned the marital home and is attempting to dissipate marital assets. Is that correct?" "It is. He left yesterday afternoon. He stated his intention to travel internationally with his mistress and their child. He explicitly said he would use joint funds for this purpose. I have frozen those accounts." Marcus nodded, making a note on a legal pad. "And your objective?" I looked at him. "My objective is a divorce decree that reflects reality. The house is mine. The investment portfolio is mine. The cars are mine. He is entitled to the balance of his personal checking account and his personal retirement fund. Nothing more. I will not pay alimony. I will not assume his debts." Marcus leaned back, steepling his fingers. "That is a highly favorable position. The court prefers equitable distribution, not necessarily equal. To achieve this, we must prove the assets are separate property. The burden of proof is on you. Can you do it?" I slid the blue binder toward him. "The house. I purchased it 6 months before we were married. The down payment came from the sale of my condominium, which I owned outright. The mortgage is solely in my name. All payments have originated from my personal checking account." I opened the binder to the first tab. Here is the deed, the mortgage application, 12 months of bank statements showing the automated payments from my account. David's name appears nowhere. Marcus scanned the documents, his eyes moving quickly. He said nothing, flipping to the next tab. I opened the red binder. "Financial accounts, my primary checking and savings, opened when I was 22. His salary was deposited into a separate account he controlled. He transferred a fixed amount monthly for shared expenses. The surplus from my income went into a brokerage account." I pointed to a column of figures. "These are the records, every deposit from my employer, every transfer from his account marked for household. There is no commingling of funds beyond the operational account for bills, which I have now closed." For the next hour, I walked him through it. The car registrations, the furniture receipts, most paid from my credit card, the inheritance from my aunt that I had placed in a separate trust. I had documented everything with the methodical precision of my profession. It was not emotion, it was data. Each document was a brick in a wall I had built without realizing I would one day need a fortress. Marcus finally looked up. "This is exceptionally clean. He never contributed to the mortgage, not even for renovations." "He paid for a patio furniture set 2 years ago," I said. "I have that receipt as well. It's in the file. It's not attached to the property's value." A faint, grim smile touched Marcus's lips. "Good. This simplifies matters considerably. The law is clear on tracing separate property. With this paper trail, his claim to the major assets is negligible." He closed the last binder. "Now, strategy. We file the petition today. We will request a temporary restraining order freezing any further asset movement and granting you exclusive use of the marital residence. Given his threat on the recorded line, we have grounds. We will also formally serve him with notice of the proceedings." "Where will he be served?" I asked. "You said he's stranded at the airport. He'll likely return to the area. We can have a process server find him at his office or at a hotel if he's not at the house. I advise against you being present when he is served." "I have no intention of being present," I said. "Next," Marcus continued, "we need to secure the physical property. Changing the locks is advisable. Do you have his key?" "He has a set. I do not want him to have access." "I'll arrange for a bonded locksmith to meet you at the house this afternoon. The filing and the restraining order will support that action as preserving the marital asset. Now, the social component." He looked at me carefully. "He will be angry. He will likely attempt to control the narrative with friends, family, possibly on social media. Have you considered your response?" I had. My response is silence. For now, I will not engage. If asked directly by a mutual friend, I will state that we are separated and the matter is with our attorneys. Nothing more. "Prudent, let him talk. Let him spin a story. Inconsistencies will emerge. When he lies about the financial situation, we have the evidence to disprove it publicly if necessary, but that is a later decision." He gathered the binders into a neat stack. "My associate will begin drafting the filing immediately. I will need you to review and sign. You should expect a call from David once he is served. It will not be pleasant." "I am not answering his calls." "Good, direct all communication to me. Do not respond to texts or emails. Create a record of any attempts at contact. Screenshot everything." He stood up. "Are you prepared for this? The next few days will be difficult." I looked at the stack of binders, the physical proof of my separate life, the life he had treated as a convenience. "The difficult part was listening to him pack his suitcase," I said. "This is just administration." Marcus nodded. "Then let's administer. I'll call you when the documents are ready for signature. The locksmith will be at your home at 3 p.m. I left his office, the briefcase now empty. The sun was high outside, the city moving at its normal pace. I felt a strange detachment. The meeting had been a clinical review of facts, a battle plan drawn on a topographic map of our finances. There was no anger in that room, only analysis. It was the purest form of control. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Not a call, but a cascade of notifications. Instagram, Facebook, David was posting. I did not open the apps. I already knew what they would say. Vague phrases about betrayal, about unexpected obstacles, hashtags about resilience. He was building his narrative for an audience. Let him. He was building it on a foundation of sand, and I had the tide schedule. I got in my car. It was only 11 in the morning. I had 4 hours until the locksmith. I drove to a storage facility on the outskirts of the city, one I had rented online the previous night. I needed a neutral place to put his things. The house was no longer his home. It was mine, and I intended to reclaim every inch of it. The storage unit was a 10 by 15-foot concrete cube, clean and impersonal. I left it empty for now, the key a cold, new metal object in my hand. I drove back to the house. It was just past 2. I had an hour before the locksmith. I went to the garage and found a stack of flattened cardboard boxes left over from an online furniture delivery. I carried them inside, along with a roll of packing tape. I did not go upstairs immediately. Instead, I walked through the lower floor, a forensic assessment. I started in the living room, the books on the shelves. I removed each one he had purchased or that held his interest. Popular science, a few spy novels, a biography of a musician he liked. I placed them in a box. The decorative items, a small sculpture from a trip we took early on, a framed print he had chosen. Into the box. I was systematic, emotionless. These were not memories. They were objects belonging to a tenant who had vacated. By the time the doorbell rang at 3, I had filled 3 boxes with the detritus of his presence from the common areas. I taped them shut, labeled them David Living Room with a black marker, and set them by the front door. The locksmith was a man in his 50s, taciturn and efficient. He carried a heavy toolbox. "Which doors?" he asked. "Front door, side garage door, and the patio door to the backyard," I said. "I want all locks rekeyed to a single new key." He nodded, setting his toolbox down by the front door. "I'll need to see some ID and proof of residence. Standard procedure." I showed him my driver's license and the mortgage statement from my files. He examined them, nodded again, and got to work. I watched as he removed the existing deadbolt and handle assembly. The process was quick. The sound of his drill was loud in the quiet house. Within 20 minutes, he had installed a new, heavier deadbolt and a matching handle. He handed me 2 shiny silver keys. "Try it," he said. I inserted the key. It turned smoothly with a solid, deep asterisk clunk as the bolt shot home. I turned it back, opened the door, and repeated the process. The sound was different. It was the sound of a new beginning, a definitive end. It was the sound of control. "Good," the locksmith said. He moved to the other doors. I followed him, testing each new key as he finished. By 4 o'clock, he was done. I paid him in cash from the emergency fund I kept at home, and he left. The house was now physically mine in a way it had not been before. I stood in the foyer, holding the 3 new keys in my palm. Their weight was negligible, but their meaning was immense. My phone buzzed. It was Marcus. "The petition is filed with the court," he said without preamble. "A temporary restraining order is granted, effective immediately. It prohibits him from disposing of any assets, approaching the marital residence, or contacting you except through counsel. He will be served today. My process server located him. He's at a budget hotel near the airport." "Good," I said, my eyes on the boxes by the door. "He will likely react when he is served. Be prepared. The locks are changed." "They are." "Excellent. Sit tight. Do not engage." I ended the call and placed the keys on the entry table. Then I went upstairs. Our bedroom, my asterisk bedroom. His closet was still half full. The suitcase he had taken was his best, but he had left behind a wardrobe built over years, much of it funded by my generosity. I did not sort. I did not deliberate. I opened the closet and began pulling clothes from hangers. Suits, shirts, trousers. I folded nothing. I simply placed them in large cardboard boxes. Dress shoes went into a separate box. Belts, ties, watches from his dresser, all into a smaller container. I cleared his nightstand drawer, a spare phone charger, a paperback book, a pair of reading glasses, into a box. From the bathroom, I took his razor, his cologne, the expensive hair product he liked. I dumped it all into a trash bag and then placed the bag inside a box. I wanted no traces. I worked for 2 hours. The bedroom floor became a grid of sealed, labeled boxes. I dragged them, one by one, to the top of the stairs and then carefully bumped them down to the foyer below. My back ached. My hands were dry from the cardboard. I did not stop. Next, the home office. It had been a shared space in theory, but he used it more. I emptied the desk of his papers, his files, his favorite pen. I took the framed photo of him with his college friends from the shelf. I packed his laptop charger, his external hard drive. All of it went into boxes. By 7 in the evening, the foyer was an obstacle course of cardboard. 16 boxes in total, a monument to a life that was no longer welcome here. I was sweating, a physical tiredness seeping into my bones. I drank a glass of water and called a courier service I had pre-booked. 2 men arrived in a van. They loaded the boxes without comment. I gave them the address of the storage unit and the key. "Put them inside. Leave the key in the lockbox on the door," I instructed. They drove away. The house felt larger. It echoed. I walked back upstairs and stood in the doorway of the bedroom. The closet on his side was a yawning, empty space. The top of his dresser was bare. The room was no longer ours. It was mine. The silence was no longer oppressive. It was clean. I went to my home office, the room I used for my actual work, and logged onto the court's website. Using the case number Marcus had texted me, I pulled up the filed petition for dissolution of marriage. I read through it. It was my affidavit, my facts, presented in stark legal language. It felt like reading a report on a stranger, yet every line was true. I printed a copy. I placed it in a file folder on my desk. I then composed a brief email to my HR department. "Please note a change in my personal status. I am currently undergoing a divorce. Please direct any related correspondence to my personal email. Attached is a copy of the filed petition for your records." I attached the PDF. It was a proactive step to prevent him from trying to contact me through my workplace. By 9 o'clock, the house was quiet, locked, and his physical presence was eradicated. I took a shower, washing away the dust and effort of the day. As I toweled off, I saw my reflection in the steamed mirror. My face showed fatigue, but my eyes were clear. There was no regret, only a steady, unwavering certainty. I dressed in pajamas and went to the kitchen to make tea. My phone lit up on the counter. A notification from a security app motion detected at the front door. I opened the live feed. It was David. He was standing on the front porch, his face illuminated by the porch light. He looked disheveled, his expression a mix of fury and disbelief. He held a white envelope in his hand, the served papers. He tried the door handle. It did not move. He shoved his key into the new lock. It would not turn. He tried again, more forcefully, then slammed his palm against the door. I took the kettle off the stove, poured the hot water over the tea bag, and watched him on the small screen. I did not move toward the door. I did not turn off the light. I simply stood in my kitchen, in the heart of the house he could no longer enter, and I waited. He rang the bell, a long, insistent buzz. Then he began to knock. The knocking turned into pounding, a hard, rhythmic thud against the solid wood of the front door. On the security screen, I watched his face contort. He was shouting, but the door and the distance muffled the words into angry, incoherent noise. He kicked the base of the door once, a sharp, frustrated motion, then took a step back, running a hand through his hair. He looked at the envelope in his other hand, then back at the door. He shouted something directly at the camera, his eyes glaring into the lens, before turning and stalking off the porch. The motion sensor light went off, leaving the screen dark. I finished my tea, I washed the cup, I checked that every door and window on the ground floor was locked. Then I went to bed. I did not sleep deeply, but I slept. The house was secure. The next morning, the digital world began to stir. I had muted notifications from David, but I had not blocked him. I wanted to see what he would do. Marcus had advised it for evidence. As I scrolled through my phone over breakfast, I saw them. His posts started appearing around 7 a.m. On Facebook, a vague status, when you give everything and get betrayal in return. Hard to know who you can trust these days. Going through its strength. On Instagram, a picture of a generic hotel room wall, captioned, "Unexpected detour." Sometimes the universe tests you, grateful for the real ones who stand by you. The comments began to fill with concern. "Bro, what happened? You okay, David? Sending love. Is everything all right with Olivia?" He did not answer directly. He responded with heart emojis or single words like asterisk thanks and appreciate you. He was cultivating mystery, painting himself as the wounded party. It was a classic tactic. Control the narrative by being first, and be vague enough to let people's imaginations supply the worst about the other person, me. My phone began to ring. First, it was Sarah, a friend from my book club. "Olivia, hi, I just saw David's posts. They're so strange. Is everything okay with you too?" I used the line I had prepared. "We've separated, Sarah. The matter is with our attorneys. I appreciate your concern, but I can't discuss it further right now." "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, of course. Let me know if you need anything." Her voice was warm with genuine worry. "Thank you," I said and ended the call. Next was Michael, a former colleague of David, who I liked. "Liv, David's posting some cryptic stuff. He's not answering his phone. He missed a meeting. What's going on?" Same response. "We're separated, Michael. It's a legal matter now. I'm sure he'll surface soon." "Separated? Jesus, okay. Look, I'm here if you need to talk." "I know, thank you." The calls and texts trickled in throughout the morning. A cousin, 2 more mutual friends. Each time I delivered the same script. Calm, factual, closed-ended. I expressed no emotion. I offered no details. I simply stated the new reality: separation, attorneys. The contrast was stark. David was broadcasting a performative tragedy online. I was providing a dry, bureaucratic statement to direct inquiries. Already, I could sense the shift. People's initial concern for him began to be tempered by curiosity. Why was he so vague? Why was I so calm? What wasn't he saying? Around noon, a different kind of message arrived. It was from Chloe. She had found my Instagram profile, a private account I rarely used, and sent a direct message. "You need to stop this. You're being cruel. He's devastated. We were supposed to be starting our life together, and you're destroying everything out of spite. Just sign whatever papers he needs so we can move on." I read it 3 times. The entitlement was breathtaking. I did not respond. Instead, I took a screenshot of the message and forwarded it to Marcus with a note, "Harassment from the mistress," adding to file. Marcus called minutes later. "Do not engage," he said. "This is good. It demonstrates her involvement and his probable encouragement of contact, which violates the spirit of the restraining order. It shows pattern." "I have no intention of engaging," I assured him. "The social media campaign is underway on his end, I assume." Vague, pity-seeking posts. He's getting a lot of sympathetic comments. As expected, he's trying to preempt the financial truth. We need to decide on timing for our disclosure. The petition is a public record, but it's dry. The story will get out when someone looks it up. We can control * how it gets out. I had been thinking about this. If we release anything, it should be undeniable. Not accusations, just facts, documents. Exactly. A single clear image, the deed to the house, the mortgage in your name, something that visually and immediately disproves his narrative of shared sacrifice. We post it from a neutral account, not from you. It gets shared. The story becomes about his deception, not a messy marital spat. "Who runs the neutral account?" I asked. "I have a paralegal with a discreet, personal social media presence. She can post it as a tip or an interesting find from public records. It will appear organic. You remain publicly silent, the dignified victim." He looks like a fraud. I considered it. It was risky. It could seem manipulative, but his vague posts were manipulation too, just a sloppier kind. This would be surgical. "Do it," I said, "but not yet. Let him post a little more. Let him dig his hole a bit deeper. Let him get specific in his lies." Agreed. Let him claim hardship. Let him imply shared struggle. Then we drop the truth. The higher he builds his false narrative, the harder he falls. I spent the afternoon in a state of detached observation. I watched David's social media. He posted a picture of a cheap diner coffee. The simple things when times are tough. He was laying it on thick. His friends were now offering places to stay, asking if he needed money. He responded with, "I'll manage, brother. Just gotta get back on my feet." He was actively soliciting sympathy and possibly funds under false pretenses. I documented it all. Screenshots saved with timestamps. My friend Alina, who had no connection to David and was fiercely loyal, called. "I've been watching this clown show online," she said, her voice sharp. "Do you want me to comment? I can shut this down." "No," I said. "Not yet, just watch. Take screenshots. I may need you to share something later, but I'll tell you when and what." "Okay, but it's taking all my willpower not to write 'our money' on every one of his posts." "I know. Thank you for the restraint." By evening, the energy had shifted. The concerned comments on David's posts began to be peppered with questions. "Dude, where are you staying? Is Olivia still in the house? What's going on with work?" He was being forced to flesh out his story, and I could see him struggling to maintain the vagueness. He was in a corner of his own making. He had to either reveal the truth, that he was broke because he'd tried to steal from me and failed, or double down on lies that would become increasingly difficult to sustain. I made a simple dinner. I ate at the kitchen island. The house was quiet, but it was a quiet I owned. I felt a strange sense of anticipation. The legal moves were in motion. The physical reclamation was complete. Now the social battle was beginning. He was on the stage, performing his tragedy to a willing audience. Soon, I would change the lighting. I would show them the set was fake, the props were stolen, and the lead actor was a con man. And then I would walk away and let the audience deal with him. The green light came from Marcus 2 days later. "He just posted a GoFundMe," Marcus said, his voice flat with disbelief. "It's titled 'Rebuilding After Betrayal.' He's asking for $5,000 for legal fees and temporary housing. He claims he was locked out of his home and his resources were frozen." I pulled up the link he sent. The page was spare. using the same vague language from his social media. It had already garnered $300 in donations from well-meaning friends. That was the line, soliciting money under false pretenses. It was time. "Post it," I said. "It's ready. The paralegal will publish in 5 minutes. She'll tag a few local gossip pages that follow public records. It will spread quickly." I hung up and opened my laptop. I navigated to the social media profile Marcus had told me about, a generic-sounding personal account his paralegal used for these rare, discreet operations. At exactly 2:05 p.m., a new post appeared. The image was a clean, simple collage. On the left, a redacted copy of the deed to my house, showing my name as the sole grantee. On the right, the first page of the mortgage agreement, my name and signature clearly visible as the sole borrower. Across the center, a screenshot of the filed divorce petition with key lines highlighted. "Petitioner requests dissolution. Respondent has no ownership interest in the real property located at." The caption was masterfully neutral. Saw this in the public court filings today. Wild. Guy was posting about being locked out of his house and raising money. Looks like it was never his house to begin with. Just saying public records don't lie. I watched. For the first 10 minutes, there were a few likes, a couple of shares. Then one of the local gossip pages picked it up and reposted it with a shocked face emoji. The shares multiplied. Comments flooded in. "OMG, is this about David Sterling? Wait, that's the guy with the GoFundMe. So he doesn't own the house. He's fundraising to fight for a house that's not even his. This is his wife's house. He left her and then tried to get money from people. I just donated. I feel sick." The link to the GoFundMe was shared in the comments, accompanied by outrage. People began reporting the fundraiser as fraudulent. Within an hour, the GoFundMe page disappeared, taken down by the platform. My phone started to ring, not from friends this time, but from numbers I didn't recognize. I let them go to voicemail. Text messages buzzed in from people who were once casual acquaintances. "Olivia, I saw that post. I'm so sorry, we had no idea. David told everyone you were having a mental breakdown and froze him out. This is unbelievable. You must be so hurt. We're all on your side." I did not respond to any of them. I took screenshots of the supportive messages and filed them away. They were evidence of the social shift, but they were also meaningless noise. Their support now was as fickle as their sympathy for him had been 2 days ago. The real spectacle was on David's personal pages. His vague, inspirational posts were now buried under a tsunami of angry and questioning comments. His most recent photo of the diner coffee had over 200 comments. "Explain the deed, David. You lied to all of us. Did you really try to take your mistress on vacation with your wife's money? We want our donations back." He did not respond. He could not. Any response would be a trap. He went silent. His profile, which had been so active in its performative suffering, became a ghost town. Then the messages from Chloe came to me, this time via a new Instagram account she'd made. They were frantic, unhinged. "You ruined him. You ruined us. He's crying. He has nothing. You're an evil bitch. He never loved you. He said you were boring and cold. This proves it." I read them with the same detachment as before. Her words were meant to wound, but they only confirmed my decisions. He had said I was boring and cold. He was right about the cold part now. I was glacial. I took screenshots and sent them to Marcus with a note. Continued harassment. Escalating. He called back immediately. "This is perfect. We can use this to petition for a broader no-contact order that includes her. It demonstrates his continued association with a person who is harassing you. It builds our case for his character." "Do it," I said. By evening, the story had a life of its own. Someone had dug up the property tax records, confirming I paid them. Someone else found an old LinkedIn post of mine celebrating a bonus and contrasted it with David's job title. The narrative was now fully formed, and it was damning. Successful wife bankrolls lifestyle, husband cheats, tries to steal money for mistress, gets caught, lies to friends for cash. I received one last direct message. this time from David's brother, Mark, a man I had always found reasonable. Olivia, I don't know what to say. I'm ashamed of him. My parents are devastated. He's been lying to us too. He told us you were having an affair and cleaning him out. We see the truth now. We are so sorry for what he's done. You have our full support. That one I considered answering, not for his sake, but to be the bigger person, to cement the narrative of my dignified silence. I wrote back a single line. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. I closed my laptop. The quiet in the house was profound. I walked to the window. The street was calm, no David on the doorstep, no pounding. The digital firestorm was raging out there, but in here there was only peace. The receipts had been provided. The court of public opinion had reached its verdict. My role in that theater was over. The next moves were not social. They were final. The law would now run its course, and it would run over him. I had given it the push it needed. The security alert chimed again at 9 o'clock that night. I was in the living room reading. I put my book down and opened the app on my tablet. He was back. This time, he did not try the lock immediately. He stood on the porch, his shoulders slumped, head down. He looked smaller. The porch light showed the details the dark had hidden before, the wrinkled shirt, the shadow of stubble. He stood there for a full minute, as if gathering himself. Then he raised his hand and knocked. Not a pound, but 3 measured raps. I did not move. I watched the screen. He knocked again. Olivia. His voice was muffled but clear. I know you're there. I saw the light. Please, we need to talk. I remained silent. I placed the tablet on the coffee table, the live feed still playing. I picked up my book again, but did not read. Please, he repeated, his voice cracking. Just open the door, just for 5 minutes. You can keep the chain on. I need to talk to you. The desperation was new. It was not the performative anguish of his social media. This sounded raw, stripped of its audience. I found I did not care. Olivia, for God's sake, say something. The plea edged back toward anger. I set the book down. I stood up and walked to the foyer. I stopped a few feet from the door. I did not look through the peephole. I spoke to the solid wood. You are in violation of the temporary restraining order, David. You need to leave. A beat of silence, then a rush of words. I don't care about the order. This is insane. You can't do this to me. You have destroyed my life. I did nothing to you, I said, my voice flat. You made choices. These are the consequences. Choices, he spat. You trapped me. You with your spreadsheets and your quiet judgments. You made me feel like a guest in my own home. It was never your home, I stated. It was my house. You were a tenant who didn't pay rent. You're my wife, he shouted, his fist hitting the door in a single thump. What is wrong with you? We had a life together. We had an arrangement, I corrected. I funded it. You enjoyed it. Then you decided to upgrade. I am simply ending the arrangement. I heard him take a shuddering breath. The anger bled out of his voice, replaced by a wheedling tone. Okay, I was wrong. I see that now. What I said about my real family, I was angry. I was confused. Chloe means nothing. The baby, it was a mistake. It's you I love. It's always been you. I closed my eyes for a second. The transparency of the lie was almost impressive. No, David. Yes, listen to me. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll end it with her today, right now. I'll sign a postnup, anything you want. Just open the door. Let me come home. This is not your home, I repeated. And there is nothing to fix. You were packing a suitcase for Bali with her. You looked me in the eye and called her your real family. There is no coming back from that. The only thing left is the divorce. You cold bitch. The shift was instantaneous, venomous. You were waiting for this, weren't you? You were just looking for an excuse to cut me off and keep everything for yourself. You never loved me. You just needed a pet. I did not respond. His words were stones thrown at a cliff. I'll fight you, he yelled. I'll get a lawyer and I'll take you for every penny you have. I deserve half of everything. You won't win. I already have one, I said, my voice low but clear through the door. The lawyer you can't afford has seen the documents. The judge will see them. You have no claim. You will get nothing but your own debt. Your only choice is to accept the settlement offered or drag this out and accrue more legal fees you cannot pay. The silence from the other side was thick. I could imagine his mind racing, hitting the same walls I had built around him. When he spoke again, it was a whisper. "You're really going to leave me with nothing?" "You left with a suitcase," I said. "That is what you chose to take. That is what you have." A raw, ugly sound escaped him. It might have been a sob or a curse. "I hate you." "I know. You've turned everyone against me. My friends, my family, they all think I'm a monster." "They think you're a liar," I said. "Because you are. You lied to them. You lied to me. The truth simply caught up." He was crying now. I could hear it. Wet, ragged breaths. "Please, Olivia, please, I have nowhere to go. I'm staying in a motel that smells like mildew. I'm broke. Just let me sleep on the couch tonight. Just for one night. I won't bother you, I swear." For a fleeting moment, the ghost of the man I once loved flickered in my memory. But it was just a ghost. The man on the other side of the door was a stranger, and a dangerous one. Letting him in would be a tactical error of the highest order. It would muddy the waters, give him a claim, undermine my position. "No," I said. "You need to leave the property. If you are not gone in 60 seconds, I will call the police and report a violation of the restraining order. They will arrest you." The crying stopped. The silence became charged, dangerous. "You would do that? You'd have me arrested?" "Yes." I heard him shuffle back from the door. "You are a piece of work," he said, his voice drained of all emotion. "You enjoy this. You're smiling right now, aren't you?" I was not smiling. My face felt like stone. 50 seconds, I said. He swore a vicious, final word. Then I heard his footsteps on the porch stairs, crunching on the gravel path. On the tablet screen, I watched his figure retreat down the driveway, get into his car, and drive away. The taillights disappeared around the corner. I stood in the foyer for a long time. The confrontation had lasted less than 10 minutes. In it, he had cycled through anger, manipulation, begging, and threats. He had shown me every weapon in his arsenal, and every one had been inert. I had felt nothing but a distant, clinical recognition of his tactics. The love that might have made those tactics effective had been methodically erased, boxed up, and sent to storage. I walked to the kitchen and poured a glass of water. My hand was steady. I drank it slowly. Then I returned to the living room, picked up my book, and found my place. I read until my eyes grew heavy. Then I turned off the lights, checked the locks one final time, and went upstairs to sleep. The doorstep was empty. The house was quiet. The last thread was cut. The call from Marcus came at 10 the next morning. "It's done. He was served at his motel 40 minutes ago. The process server confirmed personal delivery. He also noted there was a woman present, presumably Chloe. There was an altercation after service." An altercation. Loud voices. The woman was shouting. The server waited in his car to complete his affidavit and observed her leaving the room with a bag approximately 15 minutes later. She got into a rideshare and left. David did not follow. I absorbed this. The dominoes were falling as predicted. The financial reality, the social exposure, and now the legal formalities had created a pressure that their fragile arrangement could not withstand. "Thank you, Marcus." The ball is officially in his court. He has 30 days to respond. If he fails to respond, we move for default judgment. Given his financial situation, it is unlikely he will secure competent counsel in time, if at all. "What are the exact terms he was served?" I asked, though I knew them by heart. "Dissolution of marriage. No spousal support awarded to respondent. Confirmation of separate property as listed in Schedule A. The house, your investment accounts, vehicles. Division of marital debt. You assume none. He assumes his personal credit card balances and the remaining balance on his auto loan. He is to remove any personal belongings from the premises, which you have already facilitated. He is prohibited from contacting you or coming within 500 feet of your residence or workplace." "Good," I said. "I'll email you a copy of the proof of service. Expect contact from him. He will be angry." "He is always angry," I said. "It just has fewer outlets now." I had just ended the call when my phone rang again. A number I didn't recognize, but with a local area code. I answered, saying nothing. "You did it." David's voice was a low, ragged scrape. "You actually did it." I remained silent. They came to my room. A guy in a cheap suit handed me an envelope. In front of Chloe. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? I do not care, I said. He gave a sharp, bitter laugh. No, of course you don't. No alimony, you take everything. I get my debt. That's your master plan. You're wiping me out. You are facing the consequences of your actions, I said. There is a difference. Consequences, he shouted, and I heard something crash in the background. You engineered this. You set a trap and you're sitting there, so smug, watching me fall into it. You announced you were leaving me for another woman and using my money to do it, I stated, my voice level. I did not engineer that. I merely declined to finance it. She left, he said, the fury suddenly draining, replaced by a hollow tone. Chloe, she saw the papers. She started screaming, asked me how I could be so stupid, said she wasn't signing up to be with a broke, married loser. She took her things and left, just walked out. I said nothing. I felt no satisfaction. It was an expected outcome, a logical result. Are you happy? He demanded. You've got me alone in a shitty motel with nothing. No wife, no one, no money. My family won't return my calls. My friends think I'm a joke. Is this what you wanted? What I wanted, I said slowly, was a partner who saw me as an equal, who respected my work and my love. You did not. You saw a resource. When you believed you had found a better resource, you discarded me. You did not anticipate that the resource could think, that it could act, that it could protect itself. Your current situation is not my design. It is the natural result of your own poor calculations. He was quiet for so long I thought the line had gone dead. I can't afford a lawyer, he finally whispered. You should contact the State Bar Association. They can refer you to legal aid. Legal aid, he repeated, the words tasting like ash. You've reduced me to legal aid. You reduced yourself, I said. I have nothing more to say to you. All future communication must go through Marcus Johnson. If you contact me directly again, I will report it as a violation of the order. Do you understand? Another long silence, then a single defeated word. Yes. I ended the call. I placed the phone on my desk. I felt a strange emptiness, but it was not sadness. It was the emptiness after a long project has been completed, the files archived, the computer shut down. The emotional labor was over. The administrative work would continue, but the heavy lifting was done. I opened my email and found Marcus's message with the attached proof of service. I printed it. I added it to the growing file on my desk. The record was complete. The initial betrayal, the financial lockdown, the legal filing, the public exposure, the formal service, the collapse of his alternative life. Each step documented. I stood up and walked to the window. The day was overcast. I thought about the motel room he described, the crash I'd heard, the emptiness he now faced. I should have felt something. Pity, perhaps. But I felt only a mild, distant acknowledgement, the way one acknowledges bad weather forecast for a day one plans to spend indoors. It was happening out there, but in here I was dry. I was safe. The locks held. The deeds were in my name. The law was on my side. The story was told. He was now a problem for the legal system and his own conscience. He was no longer my problem. The chapter titled David was closing, its final lines written in a motel room by a process server and a departing mistress. I turned away from the window. I had my own next chapter to plan. It would not include him. The silence after the call was different. It was not the shocked silence of his departure or the strategic silence of my planning. It was a complete, final silence. The house was empty of his presence, his things, his drama. It was just a structure now, filled with furniture and the ghost of a life that was over. I walked from room to room. I did this not out of nostalgia, but as an assessment. The living room, where we had entertained friends who were no longer friends. The dining room, where we had shared meals that were more like business transactions. The bedroom, where the suitcase had been packed. Each space was clean, orderly, and utterly devoid of him. But it was not devoid of the memory of him. The memory was in the walls, in the layout, in the very air. I had reclaimed the physical space, but the psychological space was still occupied. I stopped in the doorway of the bedroom. The empty side of the closet was a blank space. I realized I did not want to fill it. I did not want to sleep in this room again. This house was a monument to a failed partnership, a beautiful shell built on a faulty foundation. I had won it, but I did not want it. I returned to my home office and opened my laptop. I navigated to the website of a real estate agency known for handling high-value, discreet sales. I filled out a contact form, providing my name, the address, and a brief note, motivated seller. Seeking a quick as-is sale. All cash preferred. Please have senior agent contact me. Within an hour, my phone rang. A woman named Evelyn Marsh introduced herself. Her voice was professional, warm, but not cloying. I explained the situation in bare terms. I am recently separated. The divorce is pending. The house is in my name alone. I wish to sell it quickly to facilitate a clean break. I do not need top dollar. I need efficiency and discretion. I understand completely, Evelyn said. I can have a photographer and stager out tomorrow if you're ready. The market is strong for properties like yours. We can list it within 48 hours. That is acceptable, I said. I will be here tomorrow at 9. The next morning, a team of 3 people arrived. They were brisk and efficient. They moved a few pieces of my furniture, brought in some neutral decor, and took photographs. I stayed out of their way, working from the kitchen table. The process was clinical. They were not selling a home, they were merchandising a product. I found that perspective comforting. After they left, Evelyn walked through with me. It shows beautifully, she said. We'll list it just below market to generate immediate interest. I expect multiple offers within the week. Good, I said. Have you given thought to where you'll go? I have, I said. I had spent the previous evening researching apartments. Not a house, an apartment. Something with no history, no yard to maintain, a secure building with a concierge. A clean, new box in the sky. That afternoon, I visited 2 properties. The first was fine. The second was a corner unit on the 15th floor of a modern building downtown. The walls were white. The floors were pale hardwood. The windows were floor-to-ceiling, offering a panoramic view of the city and the river beyond. The space was empty, echoing with potential. The sunlight streamed in, unobstructed by curtains or memories. The leasing agent, a young man named Ben, talked about amenities. I barely heard him. I walked to the center of the living room and turned in a slow circle. The silence here was not the heavy silence of my house. It was a light, empty silence, waiting to be filled with my choices. No one else had ever lived here. No arguments had happened here. No suitcases had been packed here. I'll take it, I said, interrupting him. Ben blinked. You don't want to see the bedroom or the... I have seen it, I said. The lease is for 1 year, renewable. I will pay the first year up front. What do you need from me to start the paperwork? He recovered quickly, pulling a tablet from his bag. Identification, proof of income, and a deposit check. We can do a background check, but with upfront payment, it's largely a formality. I provided what was needed. An hour later, I had a signed lease and a set of temporary access codes. The apartment was mine. It would be ready in 3 days. I drove back to the house for what I knew would be one of the last times. The for sale sign was already planted on the front lawn. It looked foreign, like a medical alert bracelet on a healthy person, a necessary declaration of a changed condition. I went inside. I needed to begin packing my own things, not the shared things or his things, but the things that were unequivocally mine. I started with my home office, my books, my professional awards, my files. I packed them carefully into sturdy boxes. I labeled them Office Olivia. I then went to the bedroom and opened my closet. I took only the clothes I loved, that fit me, that represented my own style, not the style of a couple. I filled several boxes. In the back of my closet, on a high shelf, was a single cardboard box marked Important. I pulled it down. It was dusty. I carried it to the bed and opened it. Inside were not wedding photos. There was my MBA diploma, the plaque for my first major professional award, a photo of my parents taken years ago, a picture of me with Alina and 2 other close friends from college, laughing on a beach, a small felt box containing a necklace my grandmother had left me, the deed to my first condominium. These were the artifacts of the life I had before David and the life I had built independently alongside him. These were the proofs of my own identity, carefully stored away, perhaps subconsciously, for safekeeping. I closed the box. I did not need to look at the items now. I knew what was in there. It was the core of me, unchanged and intact. I placed this box by the front door. It would be the first thing I moved into the new apartment. I stood in the foyer, surrounded by boxes that represented my past and my future. The house around me was already becoming a stage set, waiting for new actors. I felt no pull, no sadness. I felt only a sense of rightness. The move was not an escape. It was an advancement. I was trading a monument to the past for a blank canvas of the future. The sunlight in the new apartment was real. The silence there was mine to define. The movers had come and gone. The new apartment held a grid of cardboard boxes against its white walls, a tidy geometry of my former life waiting to be sorted. The only furniture in place was a bed, a sofa, and a small dining table. I had ordered them new for this space. They smelled of clean fabric and unfinished wood, with no history attached. I started with the practical boxes first. Kitchenware, office supplies, linens. I worked for hours, my movements efficient. The sun arced across the sky, its light moving across the empty floor. By late afternoon, the main living area was organized. The boxes were broken down and stacked by the door for recycling. The apartment began to look lived in, but it was a minimalist, intentional kind of living. Everything had a place because I had chosen the place. Finally, only one box remained, the one marked important. I carried it to the dining table, the smooth surface cool under my forearms. I used a box cutter to slice the tape. The sound was sharp in the quiet. I lifted the flaps. The first item was my MBA diploma, still in its frame. I took it out and placed it on the table. The brass plate caught the light. Next, the professional award plaque, heavy and polished. I set it beside the diploma. Then the photograph of my parents. I leaned it against the wall. The picture of my friends on the beach went next to it. I unwrapped the small felt box and opened it. My grandmother's necklace lay on the bed of velvet, a simple pearl pendant. I did not put it on. I placed the open box on the table. Last, the deed to my first condominium, a document that represented my first major independent act. I arranged them in a line on the table. They were not trophies. They were coordinates. They plotted the points of the person I was before David and the person I had continued to be despite him. They were the evidence that the core had remained uncorrupted. My phone, lying face down on the table, vibrated with a single distinct pulse. A text message. I turned it over. The screen glowed. The message was from Marcus. It read, "Final judgment entered this afternoon. All terms as petitioned. It's done." I read the 3 words again. It's done. The legal machinery had ground to its inevitable halt. The judgment was now a matter of record. The house was mine to sell. The debts were his to bear. The marriage was dissolved. The last administrative knot was tied. I did not feel a surge of victory. I felt a release of tension I had not fully acknowledged I was carrying. A quiet, settling certainty. It was over. I looked from my phone to the items arranged on the table. The diploma, the award, the faces of my family and friends, the pearl necklace, the deed. Then I looked past them through the wall of windows. The view was expansive. The city lay below, a pattern of geometric shapes and moving lights. The river cut a dark ribbon through it, reflecting the early evening sky. It was a view of possibility, of distance, of a world that was much larger than the drama I had just exited. A feeling spread through my chest. It was not joy exactly. It was deeper and quieter than that. It was peace. It was the knowledge that I was safe, that I was free, and that I was entirely myself. No one else's definition, no one else's burden, no one else's resource. My lips curved. It was a small, private, genuine smile. There was no one to perform for, no one to witness it. It was simply my face reflecting my internal state, a quiet smile. I stood up and walked to the window. I placed my palms flat against the cool glass. The city lights began to wink on as dusk settled. I thought of the house, already under contract to a young family. I thought of David, somewhere in the city, navigating the consequences of his choices. Those thoughts were distant, like watching weather on a radar map far out to sea. It had no power to reach me here. I turned my back to the view. I looked at my new home, the open space. The few, carefully chosen pieces, the box on the table, now empty. It was a clean slate. But more than that, it was a slate I had deliberately wiped clean and was now ready to write upon on my own terms. I picked up the framed photo of my friends. I walked to a shelf I had installed earlier and placed it there. I positioned my diploma beside it. I hung the necklace on a hook inside my closet door, where I would see it each morning. The apartment was no longer empty. It was inhabited. By me. By my history, my accomplishments, my connections. All the things he had overlooked or undervalued were now the central decor. I returned to the window. The sky was a deep indigo. The lights of the city were a constellation of human endeavor. I was part of that again, not hidden in a house, playing a supporting role in someone else's fantasy. I was here, in my own space, looking out at my own future. The quiet smile remained. It felt permanent. The revenge was not a moment of dramatic confrontation. It was this silence, this peace, this unassailable freedom. He had tried to take my money, my dignity, my home. In trying, he had given me back myself. And that was the one thing he could never take away. I stood there until the last light faded from the sky. Then I turned, walked to the kitchen, and poured a glass of water. I drank it slowly. The apartment was silent, but it was my silence. I owned it, every part of it. I went to bed, and for the first time in a very long time, I slept a deep and untroubled sleep.